Welcome to Who's That Pokemon, the most in-depth Pokemon anime rewatch podcast on the entire internet. If you didn't know, this is a retrospective look back on the Pokemon anime series, episode by episode from the very beginning. This show has been airing for over 20 years now and has over 1,000 episodes, yet it seems to get neglected by Pokemon fans, so I thought it was about time it got a podcast entirely dedicated to it. Today's episode is the 16th episode of the Indigo League series titled Pokémon Shipwreck. In Japan, this episode was titled Pokémon Adrift, and it's also the second episode of a 3-part arc that we started last episode. This episode first aired in Japan on July 15, 1997, and in the United States on September 29, 1998. Fun fact here, this is the first episode in the dub to air after the North American release of Pokemon Red and Blue. So we're living in a post-Red and Blue world here, at least for North America, so not everybody, I would say a fair few people would have got their hands on the games so far that were watching the show. I'm sure the show was a very good marketing tool for the games, and I'm sure there was pretty strong sales out of the gate. But by the end of the year, I'd say pretty much everybody's playing the games. Everybody, is pretty damn familiar with the franchise now. They haven't just had 15 episodes of the anime. They now have all the knowledge of actually playing through the games too. So it kind of really is a bit of a game changer there. On this day in Pokemon history for the Japanese air date, in Japan in 2006, Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea debuted in theaters, which I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with this film. Back in the day, I kind of disliked it. I don't really know why. Maybe because it was heavily focused on May, and as a kid, I just really didn't like May. It's probably just being the fact that I was a dumb kid, a dumb boy, and didn't like that the movie was focusing on the girl. Bit of a shithead. So I didn't really like it that much. I did have the novelization of it though, and I distinctly remember one day there was a pretty big storm that hit like in the middle of the day, so the power went out, and I was on school holidays, so no school, and you can't play PlayStation, you can't watch anything on TV, so I just busted out the novelization for Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea, and I literally just read that from start to finish, and once I finished that, I was like, that wasn't too bad. Wish I had more of these novelizations right now. So that helped me turn my opinion around on it a little bit. I do sort of appreciate it a lot more these days than I did back then. For the American air date, there is nothing of note. So the screenplay was written by Junki Takagami. This is Takagami's third episode, and really the first episode he wrote that doesn't have any extremely important plot developments. His first episode was Ash winning his first gym badge, and his second episode was Ash catching Charmander. So by comparison, an episode where it's continuing off an episode that had quite a bit of important things happening in it. But in this one, not a whole lot of important developments, I guess, for the overarching plot. So it's a bit of change of pace for him compared to the first two episodes he wrote. The debuts for this episode, no recurring or major human characters debut here, obviously, because it's just really focused around the main characters here. Pokemon debuts, though, we do get the debut of Gyarados. And the Who's That Pokemon for this episode is Magikarp. So, with all of the background info out of the way, it's time to jump into the episode summary and discussion. So at the end of the previous episode, the St. Anne overturned and sank into the sea, taking Ash, his friends, and Team Rocket with it. The next morning, a police ship pulls up at the location, and Officer Jenny gives a short speech revealing that they are all presumed dead. She tosses a bouquet of white flowers into the sea of debris as a memorial. Jenny and the other officers salute the presumed victims, and one plays the trumpet as the flowers sink underwater. Meanwhile, Misty, Brock, and Pikachu call to Ash, urging him to wake up. When he does, Misty points to the porthole, and Ash looks out, noticing fish swimming. He realizes that the ship has sunk, and it is then revealed that the ship is upside down as well, to cap it all off, and it's also perched atop a seamount, positioned at the mouth of a trench.
At first, we thought all the passengers had gotten safely off the ship, but we have just discovered that 5 people are missing. Ash, Misty, Brock, Jesse, and James. It makes all of us sad to think that these young Pokemon trainers have had their promising careers cut tragically short. May these flowers honor your memory.
So for those of you that haven't seen the film, this is very obviously, this whole episode is very obviously a parody of the film The Poseidon Adventure. in that film, a huge cruise ship capsizes, and basically the whole film is a bunch of people on board trying to essentially navigate their way to the surface. And it's actually a pretty kick-ass movie. As a kid, you would sort of look at like older movies and be like, what is this? This is gross. Like, I don't want to watch this old-timey crap. But for some reason, as a kid, this film always like captivated me. I think it was just the premise like of the ship is upside down and you have to navigate like something as simple as navigating like around a cruise ship. That's a pretty basic thing when it's up the right way. But all of the cool sort of problems you have to overcome if it's upside down sort of really hooked me. And it's a movie that I've rewatched pretty regularly throughout my life. So it's a great film. I really suggest you check it out, especially if you dug the episode here. So as I mentioned, the episode kicks off with a brief recap of the closing moments from last episode, showing that everyone is trapped on board the capsized and now sinking ship. And they straight up declare them all as dead here, which, like, in the eyes of the law, Ash, Misty, Brock, Jesse, James, and Meowth, and I guess all of their Pokemon, are declared dead, which, that's pretty insane. I don't know if they've ever actually gone to the police office and the police station, I should say, and actually cleared this up and said, no, we're alive. It also raises the question of, like, if they died down there and their Pokemon were still in the Pokeballs, would they have just survived, like, forever? I guess they would have. And yeah, there's a lot of questions that the Pokemon world raises that it doesn't really ever want to answer. And of course, we've got Homeboy just honking away on the trumpet in salute of them. I don't know why, but it just made me laugh how seriously they take this sort of memorial. However, there's a bit of trivia to go with this opening scene. It's actually unknown how the police would have figured out that Jesse and James went down with the ship, and even more so that they actually knew them by name. Team Rocket wasn't supposed to be on board, and their presence wasn't known until shortly before the ship actually sank. The same happens with Ash, Brock, and Misty because there's never like a roll call for the ship. There's no list of passengers on board. They got the tickets for free, so there wasn't really any like official sign-up process. So it actually doesn't make sense how they knew that they were on board, especially because I don't think any of Ash, Brock, and Misty's family members knew that they were on board, so it's not like they could have like been like, oh, we haven't heard from them, so it doesn't actually make any sense. If you were a little bit observant during this episode, you'll notice that PM16 was the name of the ship where the memorial service was held, and this is actually a nod to the episode number. PM obviously standing for Pocket Monsters or Pokemon, and 16 is this episode number. And a similar Easter egg actually happens in Misty Meets Her Match. I feel like this kind of Easter egg is one of the most common ones in TV shows. When they have to name something sort of like that, they just give it a little nod to the actual episode number. One major question I had here is, if the ship has sunk, why aren't all the corridors filled with water pretty much immediately? I feel like on a cruise ship, water getting in would be pretty like easy once it's like under the water. So the fact that it hasn't happened at all yet is a little bit weird. Meanwhile, Jesse and James wake up from being knocked out as well. They run out into the hall and notice everything is upside down. Meowth informs them that the ship has capsized and sank. James panics as Jesse brings out Ekans. She orders it to use acid to open a hole in the floor. Meowth attempts to stop her, but it's too late. The attack opens a hole and water begins to pour in as the ship rumbles. Jesse and James try to block the jet of water but fail as the water fills the hall and washes Team Rocket away. Elsewhere on the ship, Ash and his friends head out into the stairwell. The water level prevents them going to the deck, so they have to figure out something else. Misty notes that the ship will take time to fill with water, but time is still critical. Ash wants to dive down to the deck, but Brock says that it could be dangerous. Ash realizes he is right and has a vision of running into a locked hatch and drowning. Misty sends out her Goldeen to scout the hall. It swims down and finds a dead end, but runs into the members of Team Rocket, who are again unconscious.
But if we dive down to the deck and come across a dead end, then we're done for.
Oh! So, how are we supposed to know?
Water's my specialty. Go, Goldeen! Goldeen, Goldeen.
When Team Rocket sort of realize that everything is upside down, they encounter a stove that is just shooting like basically a flamethrower of fire towards them, which, why would it be doing that? Is that a thing stoves tend to do. Like, I've never encountered a stove to just randomly shoot bursts of flames like that. So that made me take a step back there and be like, what the fuck is going on here? They also talk about death a whole lot here, which I found to be a little out of the ordinary for Pokemon. They do mention death every now and then, but here they're talking about dying quite a bit. It's actually rather morbid, this episode. They keep sort of pondering on how close they're coming to death here in this situation. I've got an error here as well. In the Latin American dub this time, Jessie states that she's going to always remember James for being a wonderful brother when they kind of resigned to their fate, which is a little weird that they would do that. I don't think they really understood what Jessie and James's relationship was there in the Latin American dub. Ash and his friends are waiting for Goldeen to resurface when James's head pops out and scares them. Goldeen then comes into view as it pushes Team Rocket, who are blue in the face from nearly drowning, up onto the deck. Jessie and James regain consciousness and stand up, ready to battle. They send out Ekans and Coughing as Ash and Brock send out Charmander, Squirtle, Bulbasaur, and Geodude. Before any of them can launch an attack, the ship begins to tip, sending everyone sliding. Ash orders the Pokemon to go to the other side, but they cause the ship to tilt the other way. After sliding back and forth, Misty orders everyone to recall their Pokemon and forget the battle in order to survive. They do so, and the ship regains balance. Misty finally manages to convince everyone to work together temporarily. With the truce, Misty reveals that she knows the ship blueprints because she once built a model of it, and that they should go up to the bottom of the ship and cut through the hull to escape. They approach a staircase, and Brock sends out Onyx to allow everyone to climb up.
Bulbasaur! Charge! Skyno, Sky!
Geodude.
All right, a match! This ship will roll if we don't do something quick!
Charmander, Squirtle, Bulbasaur, Geodude, Coughing, Ekans, to the other side of the ship!
We've got to really just give a round of applause to Goldeen here for being strong as fuck for carrying all of Team Rocket on its back. Goldeen, literally, it's a tiny, tiny Pokemon in the show, and it carries two essentially fully grown humans and a Pokemon on top of that, and it does it with, like, ease. It doesn't seem to be struggling at all, so good on Misty's Goldeen. We don't see it a whole lot, especially because Misty can't use it on land, so we only get to see it when she's in water-type situations, so shout out to Goldeen. Ash and Brock really aren't playing around with Team Rocket here. Like, they're 16 episodes in, they've essentially had enough of their shit. They send out 4 Pokemon, which usually they fight pretty honorably. They fight like 1 Pokemon each, but they send out 4 here, and they really just want to beat the shit out of Team Rocket. Maybe it's the life or death situation really sort of pushed them over the edge, and they're like, you know what, we need to end this once and for all. So you would have heard me mention in that little recap there that Misty knows the ship blueprints because she once built a model of it. It's really weird how they do this this little section of dialogue. Misty mentions that she built the ship. Like, she just straight up is like, yeah, when I was a child, I built this ship. And they sort of perk up and they're like, wow. And then she goes, yeah, a model of the ship. And then they're shocked or annoyed, which, like, did they really think she built an actual cruise ship with her bare hands as a child? Like, what? Why would you possibly think that? One of my favorite aspects of this episode is, it sort of relates back to what I was saying about the actual Poseidon Adventure movie, how they take something as simple as traversing a cruise ship and literally flip it on its head, and it creates a lot of unique situations. Well, that's happening here as well, and they use their Pokemon for traversal, as I mentioned, Onyx being used as stairs. We'll also see Charmander being used for light, Bulbasaur using its vines as a bridge a little bit later on. And this is exactly the kind of thing I want to see in the Pokemon world. I don't just want to see battles and that sort of thing. I want to see the more, I guess, mundane. Mundane's not really the right word for it, but the more, regular, everyday type uses of Pokemon. And because that's really what makes it feel like a lived-in world where, because of course you would be using your Pokemon in those sort of ways to sort of enrich your life and in emergency situations like this. The ship's lights begin to fail as the group approaches a darkened portion of the hall. Ash brings out Charmander to light the way. They enter the next room and find it's impossible to cross over to the engine room hatch due to the large gap and the raging fire below them. Ash needs to desperately come up with an idea, so he gets Pikachu to shock him to get his brain going. He then sends out Bulbasaur to use Vine Whip to create a bridge to the opposite hatch. Ash and his friends begin to slowly cross the vines, but James is too scared to cross, begging Jessie and Meowth to go on and leave him behind. Jessie slaps him and helps him regain his composure, but Ash and his friends are already across. Jesse orders Bulbasaur to send back the vines so Team Rocket doesn't die.
I'm staying here!
James! Snap out of it! How long do you think you'd last on this side? Now let's go. We'll cross together.
Oh, Jesse, please don't abandon me.
Don't worry, I won't leave you.
Hey, Team Rocket!
Bulbasaur! Wait, don't leave us! Send back the vine!
Ash getting Pikachu to jumpstart his brain was one of my highlights of the episode. It's just, the comedic timing of it, the unexpectedness of it. I was not expecting Ash to be like, Pikachu, just fry my brain. I needed to get going. Did not see that coming, and it gave me a legitimate out loud laugh, which, re-exploring the anime, like, in general, before starting this podcast, I thought, the Pokemon anime is pretty funny. It is quite a comedic show, but I don't really necessarily remember it for giving me sort of laugh out loud moments. It's more sort of like a funny quip will happen, and I'll sort of be like, yeah, that was kind of funny. But here, I'm getting like legit, genuine laughs, and I didn't remember the writing being so good. We also need to address the balance that is required from them to cross Bulbasaur's vines in the way they do. It's just, the balance is off the charts. They literally have 1 foot on one vine, 1 foot on the other, and walk across. It's like a slightly lesser version of walking the tightrope, which I would argue that this is harder than walking a normal tightrope, because with the tightrope, you're just putting 1 foot in front of the other. Here, you're like, I don't even know. It would be literally impossible to walk across something like this, I would say. Eventually, everyone makes it safely to the engine room, though Team Rocket is virtually exhausted. Ash brings out Charmander to use Flamethrower to cut an opening through the hull. Misty instructs everyone to strap onto a water-type Pokemon, but Team Rocket doesn't have one. The hull opens and water pours in. Ash recalls Charmander, who is running from the water. Ash and Pikachu strap onto Squirtle, while Misty gets Goldeen and Brock gets Starmie. While Ash and his friends swim into the waterfall and escape to the surface, Team Rocket is still stranded. James suddenly starts snickering as he reveals the golden Pokeball holding his Magikarp, which has proven useful after all. Team Rocket straps onto Magikarp and attempt to escape, but they find that Magikarp can't swim. The water picks up and washes the ship into the trench, leaving Team Rocket's fate unknown.
Could it be? Magikarp! We're not worthy!
Feast your eyes on the king of carp, Magikarp.
You're the best, James!
I take back the jokes. From now on, I'll treat you with the respect you deserve.
Better late than never.
It's extremely naive of Misty and the Ash and Brock as well to assume Team Rocket have a water Pokemon. They've literally only ever seen them use Ekans and Coughing, and I guess Meowth, but Meowth isn't really their Pokemon. It might as well be a human for as far as they're concerned. So why would they assume that they have a water-type Pokemon? Like, they keep getting their asses handed to them using the same 2 Pokemon. Wouldn't you have thought that, like, maybe their Team Rocket are kind of, I wouldn't say dumb, but yeah, they're kind of dumb. But they would still, I feel like if they were getting their asses handed to them over and over again using the same 2 Pokemon, they'd at least be smart enough to go, you know what, let's use our other Pokemon, if they had those other Pokemon. But they clearly don't, and the fact that they just jet on them, don't even, like, ask, like, do you have a water Pokemon? Because why would you assume they have a water Pokemon? Brock doesn't have a water Pokemon. If this was a situation where they were like, yeah, let's go, and Brock was in Team Rocket's shoes, Brock would not have a water Pokemon at all. Like, it's just very, very silly from the gang. Ash and his friends climb onto a makeshift platform, noticing that Team Rocket hasn't yet made it to the surface. Ash looks out to sea and is unable to spot any land. Brock brings up the story of Noah sending out a bird to search for land, and Ash does the same thing by sending Pidgeotto out to scout. Pidgeotto locates Team Rocket on the surface, still attached to the splashing Magikarp, and brings them back to the raft. Ash and his friends presume that they have passed on, and attempt to push them back into the sea as a traditional burial. However, Jesse and James wake up just in time to prevent their accidental drowning. So Brock really went with a damn Noah's Ark reference here, which I feel like they generally try to steer away from, like, biblical stuff, like religious-based stuff. But yeah, they go with it, and it feels really strange coming out of the mouth of a Pokemon character. It's kind of, but not nearly as good as the fact that Moses parted the seas with a Beyblade in Beyblade. That's like a canonical thing, which is one of the all-time great anime moments. But it's sort of the same vibe here from Brock. Also, Brock suggesting that they give Team Rocket a burial at sea is just, again, it's so funny. This episode is so damn funny. Yeah, And it goes back to what I was saying. They talk about death so much here. It's really quite a morbid episode. We do have an error here, though. While stranded on the raft, Misty complains that if she knew she was going to be stranded, she would have stuffed her face on the ship. However, in the previous episode, when she was on the ship, she can be seen eating heavily at the buffet, so it looks like you did actually stuff your face at the ship, and you shouldn't be that hungry. It's been like 20 minutes? Okay, let's presume it took them an hour to get through the ship. That still would have been like maybe 2 hours since you last ate. So like pump the gas there, Misty. The two groups have no choice but to stay on the platform for the night. They wake up the next day and all are starving. Everyone immediately thinks of the Magikarp as their first source of food. Meowth attempts to bite it but ends up breaking his fangs, as Magikarp is, according to Misty, only scales and bones. At this point, James is so frustrated with his Pokemon that he kicks it into the ocean. The Magikarp begins to glow as it evolves into a Gyarados. Ash checks his Pokedex as James attempts to reclaim his role as the Pokemon's master, but is too scared of it. Misty sends out Goldeen, Staryu, and Starmie. Brock thinks she will battle it, but she only plans to run away with the water Pokemon pulling the raft as everyone else attempts to row. Gyarados begins to pursue them, but suddenly stops. They think it is tired, but Misty remembers sailor stories about Gyarados' Dragon Rage attack. The waves pick up as more Gyarados appear. They swim in a circle, forming a powerful water cyclone. The Gyarados advance towards the raft, and Brock urges everyone to flee again, but Misty says that nobody has ever survived the attack before. Ash, his friends, and Team Rocket try to stay together, but become separated by the water spout's strong vortex.
Whoa, this is it! Hey, Brock, Misty, Pikachu! Whatever happens, don't let go!
I do really love here that in the middle of everyone fearing for their lives from Gyarados, Ash decides to whip out his Pokedex to check out Gyarados. Like, just in the middle of a literal life and death situation, he's like, you know what? Gotta consult Dexter for this one. What is this Gyarados fella? It's really important. Professor Oak wants me to collate all this data. This is the first episode that actually hints at Misty's fear of Gyarados, which was eventually confirmed in Cerulean Blues about 1 billion episodes from now, as she immediately strategizes running away from the Gyarados instead of battling it. It's really, really strange that they wait around for the Gyarados to try and kill them. Like, they run away, and then they're like, oh, I think we got away, and then they notice, no, we didn't get away, Gyarados is just warming up an attack. So why not keep running away? Like, it doesn't make any sense that they just literally stand around and go, oh gosh, that's a Dragon Rage attack. No one's ever lived after one of those. Maybe we should run away? Nope, we're going to stand here and just accept that they're going to attack us. As the episode ends, it's got the narrator talking pretty seriously over them as they fly up into the sort of the tornado, I guess, or the vortex, as the episode summary called it, and they begin slipping from each other's grasps. And it's really super serious, and then immediately smash cuts to the Pokérap, which is so jarring. Like, it goes from, oh my god, this is life or death, this is super serious, Pokemon has never been this serious before, and then it's like, hey guys, you up for the Pokérap? Here's a bunch of Pokemon. It just makes for such a weird moment. And yeah, that's the end of the episode. What did I think of the episode? Well, I freaking love this episode, if you couldn't tell by my discussion there. It's by far the funniest episode so far, with great jokes landing basically every minute of the episode. There isn't a dull moment here, which meant that before I knew it, the episode was over. It's one of those great ones where you don't even look at the episode runtime, and all of a sudden, bang, just there it is. It's the end of the episode. It's one of those ones where it just flies by. I think the decision to do a parody of the Poseidon Adventure worked out extremely well. Not only is it fun to see Pokemon spoofing a famous film, which I think this is the episode before this it's towards the end of the episode, it does start doing a Titanic parody, but this is the first time, basically, it's not the whole episode, but it's probably like 3/4 of the episode is a movie parody. So I guess it's, in a way, it is the first time they've actually done a proper movie parody. And I think it's just the whole premise of the Poseidon Adventure ends up making for, not only a great episode, but a great way to sort of showcase some of the more different parts of the Pokemon world. It's great seeing the Pokemon get to use their abilities for something other than battling. Overall, I'd have to say that this has dethroned Here Comes the Squirtle Squad as my favourite Indigo episode so far. It's it's just, yeah, it's great from start to finish. I don't have really anything negative to say about it. So a recap of the major events that happened through this episode. Jesse's Ekans is revealed to know acid. James's Magikarp is revealed to know splash. Ash, his friends, and Team Rocket escape from the sunken St. Anne, and James's Magikarp evolves into Gyarados, learns Dragon Rage, and leaves him. Ash Ketchum's win-loss record is still 3 wins, 3 losses. No change here there's been no change since he battled at the Vermilion Gym. And now there's no extra bits of trivia this week, so we're going to move straight into our Pokemail segment to ask the question of the episode. So because this episode is mostly a film parody, I wanted to know what your thoughts are on Pokemon parodying films. Do you think it should be done more often? I think it's actually a really great way to build unique episodes that really stand out. Like, going on, how many seasons are we at now? Jesus, we're at 20 plus, obviously. Like, it can be hard to come up with new episode ideas, which I think is why they gave him sort of the summer vacation sort of vibe to Alola, and why the Galar or Gen 8 anime is going to be doing something pretty different as well. It allows them to sort of, inherently, it gives them more flexibility, I guess, with the episode ideas, because sort of the Gen 1 through 6 style of like getting all the badges, it can be pretty hard to like not step on sort of episode ideas that you've already had. So now, like, I think with the new sort of formats that they're introducing for the seasons, it's a little bit easier to come up with unique ideas. But during those seasons, I think they probably should have relied on sort of movie parodies a bit more, because the ones that I remember, like, they all seem pretty great episodes to me. So yeah, I'm a big fan of them, and I hope we encounter a lot more as we go through this podcast. Thanks for listening to Who's That Pokemon. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're not subscribed to the podcast already, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, pretty much any podcast service around the globe. You can also find the show on Twitter at Who's That PKMN Pod to keep up with the latest updates for the show. I'm also on Twitter as @SourceMarlow. You can check out my YouTube channel, WTP Productions, where this podcast is also posted. You'll also find all sorts of Pokemon content covering the games, anime, anything in between. But that's all for this episode. I hope you join me again next time as I look back at Island of the Giant Pokemon, which is the final part of this little saga, and is also, it also seems to be a film parody, but we will obviously get into that more when that episode comes around.